one of my colleagues watched your mix with the masters, and he brought into the studio one day. He said, "This has changed the way I think about mixing from Shawn Everett's mix with the masters," and it's from it's from when you had reference track, the mix you were trying to work on, and using multi-band compressor, but just soloing each band so you can kind of get zoomed in on what's going on in each frequency range. And honestly, it leveled up his mixing like stupendously. I don't know if he'd be able to do it without a reference mix, but it's a very similar principle you were describing. And I think, is this something that just happens when the artist says, we want it to sound like that record? Or yeah,
it's I mean, that specific kind of thing you just mentioned, that kind of way of working, I don't know how I figured that out. It wasn't something someone taught me. I just came across it one day because I back when I first started using Pro Tools, there wasn't as many plugins obviously as there are now. There's millions, but that was kind of like the first multi-band compressor plugin that I had access to, in like 2000 or whatever it was.
Oh, right. Yeah. So very early.
Yeah. And I would use that on my master bus or something like that. And at some point I just soloed, I think it was because I was interested in like hip hop low end and like, how could there be so much?
Yeah.
And I was trying to make it like I was trying to do something like that and it would just blow up my car and I couldn't figure it out. And at some point I realized I could solo the bands. There was like 6 bands on that multi-band compressor and I soloed one of them. And I realized that it focused my brain on being able to just hear what the low end was, what was happening on one of the hip hop references that I was listening to. And sometimes like you'd be like, I was cranking like the low end like crazy, but then you solo it and A/B it back and forth, just the low end with what you're doing. And even though you feel like you don't have enough, like you actually have too much, like comparatively to like and it's like a magic trick. It's like they've got this specific amount, but then they're like mid ranges here. So like it's like it's like this balancing act. And it was just like, oh, by doing this, I'm focusing my brain on one region and I can design that region, I learned, it gave me such a leg up and I was able to learn about different kinds of record making from doing that. Like all this stuff where I'm super into like the way, how much low end is on a Smiths record, and what emotion what the emotion is when you listen to a Smiths record, but it's like specifically what is happening. And like the way that I was able to start breaking that down kind of genetically was by soloing certain frequency bands and like really thinking like so between 100 and 500, like how much kick is there? And like, what does it sound like in that? What does the kick sound like in that region? And it was just like thinking about all of that. Like I was able to focus in a different way,
Yeah. And do you use that technique a lot?
Yeah. I mean, it's like the day that I like figured that out, it's like been probably one of the main things it's the biggest thing I ever figured out, honestly. I don't think I've ever figured out anything bigger.
Well,
that was the biggest thing.
That's really appropriate because what we in our studio, the way we refer to it is we say, okay, we'll get it just about into position, and then we'll Shawn Everett the mix. That's what we say.
That's funny.